This is the Misdirected Mark Podcast, a podcast about gaming, game mastering, and entertaining you, our listeners. We are explicit, you have been warned, and I'd like to thank Mike Willard for letting us use his music on our show. Now let's pick up those mics and get on with this thing.
Oh, one of the hardest things right now, running my company from the office, not making road trips.
You're not shy. You get around.
I miss conventions and conferences.
You want to fly. Don't want your feet on the ground.
But I'm making the best of it.
You stay up. You won't come down.
I'm a bit restless, though.
You want to live. You want to move to the sound.
Bob, what the hell is going on with you? What are you talking about?
Get fire in your veins.
There is something going on with him.
Burning hot, but you don't feel the pain.
Seriously, let me Google a couple of the things he's been saying. Hang on a second.
Your desire is insane.
Bob, these are all lyrics to Foreigner's Urgent. Are you trying to tell us something?
You can't stop until you do it again.
He's right. We need to do it again. And with that, welcome to the episode 394 of the Misdirected Mark Podcast, where we are going to be talking about creating urgency in your game. And then we will head off to the conversation corner. But first, my name is Jerry.
My name is Phil.
And I'm Old Man Logan.
Urgent. Urgent.
All right, we're getting there. I have, sort of our heads lined up. Why am I so loud? Hang on.
Stay loud. Loud is good.
You're just pinging hot.
Okay.
Loud is better than quiet.
Brought myself down a little bit. The question is, am I fading in and out? Because I switched headsets. So
You're definitely not fading in and out. You're just everybody's saying you're super loud.
Super genius. And I'll bring everybody else up. Right. Whew.
Ooh, boy.
Yeah, who boy, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, it's been a week.
So we're going to talk about our one thing, where we're just going to cover one thing that's going on in our lives. It's hard for this not to be pandemic related, but we'll see. But we will definitely talk a little bit more about, how we're doing overall when we get to the conversation corner. But Bob, tell me what your one thing is.
So it's looking more and more like right now, Zoom is the MVP of distance socializing because everybody's all like, "Oh, we're zooming." Privacy issues aside.
Yeah.
Go. Why would I use Zoom rather than just like Hangouts? Because Hangouts sucks. The quality is terrible. Zoom, on the other hand, the quality is really nice and it works really well. So there you go.
I'm pretty pleased with it. I purchased a paid account just before everything went into lockdown, and I am not disappointed. I think I'm using it I'm using it 5 to 6 times a week right now. Jerry, what about you? What's your one thing?
Close to the same thing. I think online friend support's been amazing. Done a lot of online gaming. It's kept my spirits up. We can talk about that later. And this weekend, one of the Slackers hosted a 9 p.m. Zoom and drink together, where we all got on, kind of chatted. Everybody talked about their favorite beverage of choice. And that ended up spilling into a 12 to 14 person chat on Mumble. And that just gave me just lots of feels and spoons. It was nice to have a middle of the weekend get together that felt just like sitting around with a bunch of friends chatting. And
yeah,
that's a lot like base camp.
That multi-body Mumble was awesome. Everybody
was amazing.
Mumble.
That's because Norse showed up. Norse showed up in the Mumble, and everybody came scrambling, and we were putting out the word. I texted people Norse and Mumble, and everybody came running out. Yeah, it was good. My one thing, it's hard not to. I was part of Jerry's thing. Bob's thing's absolutely right. I have been I've been doing a bunch of things on Zoom. I've been running games. I've been hosting lunch in Slackers. Like I've been doing it. Like I've been on Zoom a lot. We're running pandas through it now. We're running this show through Zoom. So yeah, I'm also a pretty big fan of Zoom. But to pick something that's not Zoom, my other thing is I started playing this. I started playing this iOS game called Star Traders Frontiers, and it's like this big RPG where you fly around in a ship and you buy cargo, sell cargo, you go on missions and stuff like that. I guess it's pretty complicated. It looks pretty complicated actually, and I'm digging it so far. I'm definitely like super fresh at the game, but I'm just kind of plodding through, trying to figure it out. But I like it. It runs well, and I think it originally was on Steam for like PC, but it runs great on iOS. I've been digging that. And my other iOS game that I've totally been jamming on is Atari released a new version of Missile Command called Missile Command Reloaded, and it's like a nicer looking version of Missile Command. You don't have the trackball anymore; you touch the screen, but it has like this really killer 80s soundtrack to it. Like when you're playing the game, yeah, it's really good. The game's, it's before there was Nintendo Hard, there was Atari Hard, right? So it's Atari Hard. Like you're gonna lose the game at some point. It's really just how long can you hold out? Yeah. So it's totally fun though. It's totally fun iOS game. The Missile Command one's free. The Star Traders Frontiers is like $7 on iOS. But yeah, I've been kind of just like, playing a couple of iOS games because I'm home a lot. So cool. It's my one thing. We got any announcements? Anything? I don't have any pressing news, although I did hear some good news, and I think Bob, you might have more details about it than I do. But last week there was some word that Tabletop Events was going to have to shut down because there isn't going to be a convention for a while, and their operating overhead, has a cost to it. And
yeah,
and I think we talked about it a little at the end of the show last week. But I thought I saw you post something like, are people raising funds to help keep them in operation?
Yeah, they the community was like, no, you can't. You can't shut down. So there is an active drive by people to try and get some money. I didn't look into the details, honestly. I can check on that for later on in the show in this PD depository or the conversation corner. Sorry.
Yeah, we'll see if we can't find some info on that. That would be good.
That was positive that that some active steps were being taken to try and save that organization. So
yeah, I mean that app's fantastic. If you are a small con, that app is indispensable in terms of what it provides for you. So that's I think that's very excellent. In other announcements, I really don't know. Like I haven't seen too many things going on, right? I don't think there are too many active. I don't think there's too many active Kickstarters going on. As for us, I mean, we're all in New York State, so we're on the far west end of the state. So, we're a little better off than down by the city, but it is a pretty scary time right now. Any other announcements, Bob?
I believe that is it for announcements.
That's it too.
All right, good. Well, then we should roll on over to the workshop where we're going to talk about something.
Urgency.
No, I knew that. I was getting ready to do. I'm waiting for Bob to cue up the music.
Yes. And get ready, Phil. You are about to stretch your throat.
Workshop, urgency. Make it feel important. Make it critical. Make them rush to do it and get it done. Don't let them sit around and be lazy. Make it urgent. Workshop.
Don't suck. All right.
Dude, you threw me off with that open up my throat thing.
Sorry. Phrasing?
Freezing, right? Dude, that would... You are hysterical. Seriously, I'm like, cool, I'm ready to do it. I'm all set. And then you're just like, open your throat up. And I'm like, because I'm 12 on the inside, right? Like, so funny. All right. Listen, this topic has no real intro. I was trying to come up with something to do for the show and looked at the pin topics and just ripped it out of the pin topics list. So apparently at some point we kicked around the idea of doing a show about urgency.
Yeah, clearly.
I think it goes nicely, though, on our discussion on productive play. Urgency can be a great tool for shifting the game from non-productive back to productive play. It's also a great tool for keeping a one-shot moving. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. I think first, Phil, can you define urgency, and then let's talk about it in the game.
Ooh, hang on.
Behold! You are in the presence of Definition Panda.
Still my favorite bumper of all time.
All right, so let's get some definitions going here. We don't have a ton of them, but we do have I guess we have an important one. I guess you could say it's urgent, right? Urgent is an action or an event done or arranged in response to a pressing or critical situation. So there's really two parts to this I want to kind of tease out of that definition, right? The first part is action or event, which means that something needs to happen, right? So when we talk about productive play, this is, if something needs to happen, we're going to be doing something in the game. And then the second part of this is critical situation, right? So we need something that is most likely bad and is looming or imminent, right? So in other words, something bad's going to happen soon and something needs to be done about it, right? That's urgency in a nutshell. And in most cases, that thing that needs to be done in the game will be done by the characters. In fact, if it's not done by the characters, you really got to think what you're doing plot-wise. So, if the solution to your thing is for the NPC to fix it, you would probably not doing a good job on your plot. Okay.
You need to tell a lot of GMs that.
Yes. I like to think that's common sense, but I'm afraid that may not be common sense.
Not even close. There are still modules being written that way.
Mm-hmm.
So, when we talk about urgency in role-playing games, this is typically going to come in the form of an adventure.
Yeah, so like sometimes we can have it in a campaign, but like campaigns are often longer, right? That's kind of the thing about campaigns. So you can have, important things that need to be dealt with, but you kind of lose the immediacy of something being urgent when it's like 6 or 7 sessions away from, like where you're 6 or 7 sessions away from solving it, right? So I like to think of it, like you said, urgency is more of a kind of session or scene, right?
Because we can have that urgency directly built into a scene, just for that point. We can get into a little bit of that, but first, in a more technical way, I want to talk a little bit about how urgency is structured, because that's going to be important in how you use it in your game. The first part of something that's urgent is that we need to have some sort of a critical situation. And normally there's 2 parts to this.
Right. So we need the situation, right? So we need something as simple as there is a leak in a tank of liquid. There's a bomb counting down. There's a mystical ritual being performed.
And after we know what it is that's being critical, we need to know that it is critical. So it means that the outcome of the situation has to be bad. This can be often harmful to the characters or the area or the world or the situation.
Yeah. So, our leaking liquid is actually acid, right? That's bad. Our countdown to the bomb is going to be in 4 turns, right? Not an hour. And that mystical ritual is summoning a dead god.
That can't be good.
Depends. If he stays dead, that's okay. But that's what makes it critical. The next part, though, is that this needs to be known. And more importantly, it has to be understood by the players.
Right. And I think this part's really key, right? Because if the players are unaware of what's going on or why it's critical, they're not going to perceive it as urgent.
And this is why the GM needs to be as clear as possible during this part. Sometimes it's an NPC that will just tell us the character. Sometimes it's a GM that just tells the players what's going on, relies on the players to get it.
Right. And so this is where it gets like really tricky, right? Because this is that thing where GMs are like, oh, but my clues were so obvious, right? And then players are like, nope. Like, and so if you're trying to just like throw things out subtly and for the players to catch on and then like jump to the fact that it's urgent, like you could just like it could all be lost. It could all just be lost on the players.
Yeah.
Remember, a lot of players are no better at subtlety in game as they are in real life. And
yeah, I mean,
that's a discussion for later.
So that's a thing I used to be really guilty of this in the 80s, right? I would be really guilty of I don't understand why you're not finding all my subtle clues like worked into the fabric of, my story. But, later I, just like left the body in the middle of the floor. It seems to be a lot easier just to, put it right out there.
Well, part of that's because you never know what the players are going to actually focus on.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the old joke about, you walk into the tavern and you see the mysterious stranger in the corner with a cloak and a sword. And, across the room, a goblin named Hercule is busy ordering a drink and everybody wants to talk to Hercule.
Yeah.
That's going to happen a lot.
His name's Hercule? Yeah. I swear, I'm going to be honest with you, Jerry.
Yeah?
I actually forgot the first part of your sentence. As soon as you said the goblin named Hercule, I was like, oh, that's probably really important. I literally forgot what you were saying on the first half of it.
Yeah,
never mind.
I have had entire campaigns that have spawned from players ignoring the main plot because they didn't realize it was a hook because they were interested in, following the dog kind of thing. So
right, which is fine in certain cases, but if we're trying to convey urgency, right, we're missing that point.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And lastly, there needs to be some sort of course of action that the players can take that can end the situation.
Yeah, because you can't have a critical situation where there isn't recourse for the players, even if runaway is the recourse, right? Like if the situation's hopeless and you've done a good job of conveying urgency to them, like you've just pissed them off, right? Like, or they'll give up. And the only time where there's an exception for this is if you're playing Paranoia, of course, right? So in Paranoia, it's perfectly fine to have an urgent situation where there's absolutely nothing that players can do about.
Because players want to be able to do something.
Yeah.
We all know what it's like to be in a situation where you're just sitting there going, I don't know what to do. And this can be really tricky. Couple of things will happen. Either the players are just going to get fed up or they're going to start taking rash, drastic actions that don't really fit the game. Yeah. Because sometimes the critical situation is going to be obvious. You know what to do. For example, Bob or Bill?
Yeah. Like, so if it's something like the bomb counting down, right? Like the players are going to clearly try to disarm it.
If it's a demonic invasion, they're going to try to stop the demons or close the portal.
Yeah, exactly. Probably both, right? Hold off the demons. We'll close the portal.
But sometimes in the heat of the moment, the players are going to forget that they have certain equipment, powers, abilities, resources. And if they feel like they can't do anything about it and they understand the urgency, they're going to end up doing one of the following.
Right. So they'll run,
mm-hmm.
right? That like, if it's like, wow, we can't do anything about this, we should get the hell out of here. They could get pissed off and become passive aggressive, right? I've seen that before, right? They start getting snarky. They're, I mean, you sense it, right? The table starts getting annoyed because they think they don't have a way to solve the problem. And then the other one is that they give up, right? They resolve themselves to the outcome of the situation, right? So you start getting things at the table like, well, guess we're getting blown up, right? Like,
we saw that in our torque play test where the little girl's father fell over into the water, and we all looked down like, have fun being an orphan kid, and walked away because we didn't feel like we had any way to rescue him without dying.
oh God,
That's horrible.
awful.
We survived.
Don't worry, kid. If you die, I'll make it.
No boy.
Exactly. That was bad GMing.
Yeah.
Now, depending on the game and your GMing style, your job is not necessarily to create the solutions to these problems, but it is your job to make sure the players can work through the problem.
Yeah, and that's actually something important that we'll talk about when we get into our roundtable portion of this segment. Is how, like, different ways to help with that. So, what does urgency do for you in a game? Right? It's intended. It's got a couple of features, right? It is definitely a story device, but it is also intended to be a bleed mechanic. Right. The idea is that the urgency of the situation should produce an emotional response in the players.
Yeah. It's not necessarily 100% of the time, but it's really great when it does.
Yeah. So from a player level, right, urgency creates some positive emotions, right? Excitement, focus, intensity, right? Like those are things that, as the urgency of a situation ratchets up at the table and people start to engage with it, right? We start to see those things. Sorry, Jerry, I just blew right through those. Those were yours. Sorry. I'll give you the next set. Right? Yeah, color coded. Just what blew right through those. Wow. Sorry.
Talk to whoever writes the notes.
Yeah, right. That guy. Anyway, so those things can lead to heightened emotional investment in the game, which is exactly the kind of thing that we like having in our game. But is also worth recognizing that urgency has negative emotions associated with it.
Anxiety, stress, frustration.
Yeah, and these can actually impact players and take them out of the game, especially if the urgency gets too high or too intense, right? People handle urgency in different ways, right? There are some people who are like dead cool under urgent situations. And there are people who take on a lot of stress reactions to it, right? And again, we're saying this is a bleed mechanic. So we're saying like these things could happen to you. Now,
in our tour campaign, that's exactly what happened. Is after the infamous fall in the water thing, for the rest of that night, nobody took any risks whatsoever. Fight over there, okay, we're going to go in that direction instead, and that sort of thing. The GM got us into no encounters after that because everybody just felt like nothing we could do would be successful, so we didn't bother trying anymore.
Exactly.
That's horrible.
Yeah, it is horrible, right? It's not a fun game. Right, like evading danger isn't like, I mean, sometimes it can be fun, but not for a whole game. So when we talk about the negative parts of stress, right, like in some cases this could actually be a safety issue. If it does, we have safety mechanisms at our tables to handle it. But more often, this kind of intensity is when people react negatively to it is more just annoying. Right. Like it's more kind of a thing that just kind of annoys people or throws them out of the game, like, throws them out of the mindset of the game.
And when it becomes an annoyance, you have to remember that intensity is going to be a story beat. And like all beats, you need to be aware of how many subsequent beats you have in a row without making them too bad.
Right. I mean, we've talked about beat structure a lot. Right. So, again, you got to have for every upbeat, you got to have a downbeat somewhere. Right. So like if all you're doing as a GM is if you've written something with just relentless urgency, you're just spamming like an 80s video game, you're just spamming the jump button on this thing. Eventually players either become numb to it or like all those negative things that we said about urgency start to creep in, right? The frustration, the hopelessness, the stress, all of that.
You could blow your whole table up like that.
Yeah, you can.
And you want to break up that intensity with resting beats between scenes, some sort of levity or some sort of ability to kind of calm down and reassess things. because that'll help to moderate the intensity, allow them to decide what to do, but also allows things to escalate for a turn or two before you turn it up again.
Yeah, and I think a lot of new GMs miss that point, right? Like they think like, well, if the whole thing's gonna be intense, it's got to be intense the whole way through. But if you watch thriller movies and things like that, that is never the case, right? There's always a case where, look at Jason Bourne, right? The original. So look at the original movie. Just after the whole thing in Paris. Right, or the whole thing in Paris. After the car chase in Paris, right? They have that huge car chase in Paris, right? It's really wild, really intense, right? It's a really tense beat. They get away, and then they do some other stuff, right? They go off screen, they do some other stuff. When they come back to Bourne, they're in a hotel room, and he's dyeing her hair, right? Like you've just like everything drops in intensity, right? Like it goes from being this really intense car chase with really intense music to now this like personal scene, right? Because they have this like little respite before they have to get moving again. And you just like, you got to pack those into your game.
Get Avengers Infinity War. Starts out, Thanos shows up, beats the sun out of Thor and Hulk. Then they have a downbeat, a light downbeat where Hulk and Tony Stark and Doctor Strange get a joke. And then the bad guys show up again, and they beat the son out of the Avengers again. And then we get another interlude that gives you a little bit of a pacing with Scarlet Witch and Vision, kind of romantic. And then the bad guys show up again, and it looks really bad. Scarlet Witch is going down. Vision's about to get his gem popped out. We've had up, down. And then Captain America shows up, and the entire thing turns. They ramped that up by having a tense beat, downbeat, tenser beat, downbeat, really tense beat. And then Captain America shows up with Falcon and Black Widow, and there's a bit of ass kicking, and they turn the whole thing around. They give the characters a chance to actually get a success after so many losses.
Yeah, it's a really good change too, right? Yep. Like, and it's such a good way because they throw that spear and Cap catches it, and you're just like, oh, like
steps out of the shadows.
Yeah, that scene, there's actually a pause in the action at that point because the directors, I think, figured out that the entire theater was about to lose its freaking mind. There are people standing up and cheering. Anyway, it's a good example of how to pace beats in a story.
Yeah, and you totally need that, right? Like we've talked about it so much on the show that like you cannot spam that button, otherwise you burn them out. So cool. I really like that. And that's an excellent example and a movie that I actually was just thinking about because I kind of just like, I really want to rewatch both of those movies this week. So I totally am going to need to do that. All right. So anyway, I thought before we got to the midpoint in this segment, I thought it'd be fun if we actually just did some interactive stuff and we create a few urgent situations. And I thought we'd just do it the following way. Like we'll pick a genre. One of us will make up a critical situation. One of us will talk about how the characters find out about it. And then one of us will state what the characters are going to do to stop it.
Cool.
Does that sound cool? All right. So I'll pick the first one. The genre is fantasy. And Jerry.
The portal to the realm of madness is opening and things man was not meant to know are girding up to come through.
Nice.
Bill?
Yep. So finding it out, right? I think the players see that like all the creatures on the edge of town start coming into town, acting like stranger and stranger. Like there's a cow like spinning in circles. There's chipmunks like run through the bar or something like that. Like things that are totally out of characteristic for animals. Bob, how do the players stop it?
They stop it by having their wizard enact a ritual to close the portal, while the rest of the party holds off the invading forces.
Okay.
I love it. That's classic, right? That's such great. I totally dig it. Mm-hmm. All right, next one. Genre is cyberpunk. Critical situation. Orbital AI has been hacked and will depressurize the orbital in just a few hours.
The players find out because their Netrunner friend Trollbait with an 8 will uncover some leads that give the punks some leverage and give them some resources so they can actually come up with a plan.
Cool.
And Bob, how do they stop it?
I think they're going to stop it by figuring out that they're going to try and convince the hacker that someone they care about is on the station and is going to be killed when the station depressurizes. So they're going to run a con on the hacker.
Yeah, I like it.
That.
No, I like that. Con on the hacker. That's cool. We're going to go steal ourselves an orbital. It's a little leverage action. All right. Good. So again, just to kind of recap this, right? The things we're talking about for urgency, right? We need to have a critical situation, right? Something that's going to go bad and go bad soon. A really important part that I think we did a good job emphasizing, but I'll really hammer on it again, right? It's never urgent unless the players understand it's urgent. And as GMs, you can never be clear enough about this, even to the point where if you have to ask in a meta level kind of thing, like just ask the players, like, you guys get this is bad, right? Like it does not hurt anything.
Yeah.
And then lastly, we talked about like players have to be able to stop it, right? Like and by stop it, it can be a number of things. They have to go and bring the key master to close it, like they, which means they have to run out, find this like person and bring her back to close the portal. They gotta hack the thing themselves. Like it can be directly, like they can do it directly, they can do it indirectly. What you don't want to have happen is you don't want to depower the players by having like oh, you just have to go tell so and so, like he'll come and like you have to go tell Superman. Superman will take care of it. Don't worry. Yeah. Right? Like that's not fun. Like bringing somebody who's going to close the ritual and then having to guard them over the course of a couple turns while they go to close the ritual. That's exciting, right? Because the players are doing something. But if you have to just go tell Superman, like, wah, wah, yeah, right? That's no fun. Yeah. Okay. All right, so cool. Having covered all that about what urgency is, how it works and such, and even throwing out a few examples, let's take a break. Let's check in with the chat room because I'm seeing people putting up their dinner menus in the chat room. But before we hit the chat room, Bob, will you tell us about another show on the Misdirected Mark Network?
Of course I will. Panda's Talking Games, one of our favorites. Fill and send to answer your questions about RPGs from the perspective of one-shots and campaigns, with some Panda silliness included. If you listen to it, you will love it. At least the rumors say so.
That is the marketing campaign for 2020. If you listen, you will love it. By the way, 2 weeks, Pandas hits its 200th episode.
Ooh.
So cool. That's for you folks in podcasting land, 200 is that's a big one. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, we will have hit our 200th episode. So cool. How's the chat room doing?
We're pretty much all talking about food.
They're hungry apparently.
Yeah, Senda made a quiche. Mo's got chili going. Evil John's got a couple of fillets and sous vide. Chris was talking about making ramen. So we're all talking about food, and now I'm hungry.
Did you eat dinner?
I did eat dinner, yes.
Okay. I was going to say, I mean, I've been cooking a lot too, actually. It's been kind of fun.
I actually got...
if there...
Actually, Mo asked a question. Does Panda still do one-shot versus campaign? He's behind, but it's been many episodes since that format.
We do. We don't do it every episode. So sometimes we just pick two topics and just, one of us talks about one side of the topic and the other one talks about the other. But we actually just recorded 199. We recorded 199 last night, and that was actually one shot and campaign. So when possible, yeah, we still do one shots and campaigns.
Cool.
So yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And now the chat room's talking about doing an MMP cookbook, which yes, we absolutely have to do.
Definitely.
Oh, that would be fun.
So I think what we need to do is, if you're in the chat room, the Slack room, we need to start throwing our favorite recipes in the Slack room. And if you're not a member of the Slack room, get it to us at Was it MMP at misdirectedmark.com?
Yeah, or on Twitter. Yeah.
Twitter, wherever. And we'll start collecting those. And no PB&J recipe because it doesn't exist. Bob's peanut butter and jelly recipe is take bread, put grape jelly on it, put more bread on it, done. That's my peanut butter and jelly recipe.
So you're a grape jelly guy?
I'm a grape jelly guy.
I'm mostly a strawberry jam guy, but I do not mind the grape jelly.
See, I don't like any of the berry flavors. I like grape, I like cherry, I like apricot, I like peach.
With peanut butter?
With peanut butter, yeah. Even better, fluffernutter. I just don't,
fluff.
I just don't like berries in general, so I don't like strawberries, raspberries, things like that to begin with. So
I got to tell you, I had a fluff sandwich like I don't know, like a year or two ago. I like bought it on a whim. I was like, I'm gonna buy some fluffernutter. I like tried eating it. I was like, oh my god, this is so much sugar.
Yeah.
Like
it's all the sugar.
I was like, holy shit.
Well, were you on the Minecraft server when we talked on Mumble? We talked about this with Savannah.
No,
Savannah had never heard of fluff. Eric and I were talking. The trick is you need to make a fluffernutter sandwich with bananas in the middle. You put crunchy peanut butter on top, then the bananas, then the fluff, and then that's what I used to take when I was driving around a lot because the fluff and the peanut butter kept the bananas from soaking into the bread.
Sure.
And so 4 hours later, you still had a nice sandwich, and it had bananas in it, so it was healthy for you.
I can't argue that. Right?
I'm not sure I can get on board with this crunchy peanut butter thing. I'm a smooth peanut butter. I'm a smooth peanut butter guy.
Yeah.
No pulp in my orange juice. No chunks in my peanut butter. But
I'm concerned. Are we talking about banana crimes?
I do. I used to when I was a kid would just have peanut butter and banana sandwich. Like that was totally a legit sandwich when I was a kid. My mom just make me peanut butter and banana sandwich. Delicious.
That's actually not horrible
banana sandwich.
Either.
It's like
better for you.
Grill that thing
better
up.
for you than a Big Mac. Yeah.
All right, we should probably loop back into the topic.
Yeah, we'll loop back into the topic. All right, cool. So second half of the segment is a roundtable discussion about urgency, and we're going to do 3 questions, and I'm going to kick it out with the first question, which is, as a GM, what is your favorite story tool? Meaning, like story element, like to get, different kind of structures, tropes, whatever. And then what's your favorite meta tool? Like, what are you using outside of the story? So what's your favorite story tool? What's your favorite meta tool for creating urgency?
Jerry. First, for me, I like for story, my big thing is always NPCs. When at all possible, have them interact with the players, have them tell the players what's going wrong, have them remind the players there's a problem. This doesn't not only ramps up the stakes, but also provides the opportunity for the players to do drama, role-playing, romance, all the things that will keep it going as a story. And just makes it more interesting for them instead of just, we've only got this thing to do and that's it. But from a meta standpoint, I don't do a lot of meta. I think things I do are things like tokens on the table. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I don't tell them what they're for. Sometimes I'll just say, okay, something's coming up, and I'll put a pile of tokens on the table, and I take one away every time something happens, let them know that we're counting down to something. Or I tell them, this is what's going on in the background. It's a visual prop that represents a clock.
Oh, I know, but it's perfect. It's great.
It does make people, they get concerned when they're down to those 1 or 2 tokens.
Uh-huh.
And also for resolving that, I like the heist mechanics from Savage Lankmar that I've bastardized into lots of other game systems. It's basically a leverage mechanic. In a nutshell, you give the group 5 minutes to discuss what's going on, to keep that urgency going. You have 5 minutes to plan. That's it. At 5 minutes, you have to make a decision. And then at the end of that, each one gets a chance to describe how they prepare. So, okay, I'm going to run off and talk to the netrunner. I'm going to go to the bar and talk to the fighters. I'm going to go steal some gear, whatever. Let them make their dice roll, whether it's a skill check or an attribute check, whatever your game has. And then for each success or crit or margin, you put a token on the table. And then once the mission begins, they can spend that token to do a flashback like they do in Leverage. So they can show how they planned for it. They can say, oh, we had that gear at the last minute. We knew that guard can be blackmailed. we already knew which wire to cut when we came up to the spot, whatever, to give them a chance to get back into that urgency and drive the story forward so they don't keep getting stuck on, we don't have a ladder to go up that incline. Oh, no, wait, we planned on that. We talked to somebody and got a ladder ahead of time. Remember that scene where whatever. But it keeps everything going forward. It also prevents the inevitable problem that happens in a lot of urgency, which is just, why don't we just kill everything and then it'll be done? So I like that kind of thing to keep things moving forward. How about you, Phil?
Yeah, I think my favorite story tool is signs and portents, right? Like I love shit like you're in the middle of the dungeon and all of a sudden there's this, kind of sound and like, stuff rattles from the ceiling and falls down and things like the sky turns purple. Like I really like those kinds of signs and portents. Like I just enjoy that kind of dread that people get when you start telling them things like, and suddenly the sky becomes, violet in color. And, a humming begins to come from all directions, right? Like it's the kind of thing that like players are like, oh shit, this is bad, right? Like this is, so I really enjoy, I really enjoy those kinds of signs and portents. As for creating urgency at a meta level, not too far off from what you said. I like clocks in general, right? I didn't know they were called clocks back when I first started doing them. Since Blades in the Dark, now we're all like, oh, those are clocks, and we're all good about it. I mean, technically since Apocalypse World, but whatever. But my preferred tool, and I haven't used it in a long time, is I have this ridiculously large D6, right? It's 96 millimeters, right? So it's big D6. And I would put it on the table and have it like face up at 6. And then like in the middle of the game, I just like pick it up and turn it to a 5.
I love that friggin' method. That's my favorite thing.
Right. And just like slowly, like, then somebody would do something and I'd turn it to a 4. Right. And just people just, and again, because we're talking about urgency as a bleed mechanic, right? So when we talk about bleed, right, there are, and we talked about this in a past episode of Misdirected Mark, bleed goes in 2 directions, right? We can have the emotions of our character bleed into who we are, but conversely, we can have our own excitement and our own physical reactions, our own personal emotions as a player bleed into our character, right? Mm-hmm. So we're attacking, like we're doing this from 2 vantage points, right? The story one is character based, and the meta one, the clock on the table, the tokens, hell, the fucking tower from Dread, right? Is or from Starcross, right? Those are playing on the other direction of bleed, which is to get the player excited so that they play their character in an excited manner. And those are great, right? Like if you want to, like, you really want to, boy, I can think of a ton of games. Like 10 Candles is another one. 10 Candles will give you the sense of urgency. Like there are 10 candles on the table. Then there's 9. Then there's 8. And it's getting worse. And, coupled with that, it's getting darker, right? Which has its own, starts to mess with us emotionally, right?
That is a brilliant setup for bleed.
Yeah, you're bleeding right into your character the whole time. So yeah, I again, big signs and portents. I do like clocks on the table, and I'm with Jerry. Jerry and I are very much in line with this. I like solutions for these urgent things to be either some sort of extended skill check, or it needs to be something that everybody has to contribute to in some way, right? Chris is always really good about figuring out how to do this in a combat scene, right? But it might be like somebody's got to hold off the guards, somebody's got to stop the wizard, and somebody's got to like pick up the dropped spell book and reverse the spell. And then like, now everybody in the scene, because I think if you got an urgent scene, especially if it's going to be your set piece, right? You don't want somebody sitting it out.
No,
right?
Not.
Or you want like everybody involved in it. So if you do it mechanistically with like an extended check, those are really good. Tales from the Loop, always. Tales from the Loop, you would do God, I can't remember the name of it. It's essentially their extended check, but that is often how you resolve the climax of the adventure. Is that all the players pick a skill, they make a roll for it. Everybody has to pool all their successes, see if there's enough successes, and if not, they can take conditions to raise up the successes. And then if it's successful, this is what happens. And if it's not successful, then something else happens. And even if it is successful, often the kids wind up with 2 or 3 conditions. Somebody winds up broken. So it's almost success. It's almost always success with complications, which I think is great because I think if you don't do that and it's like you've had this whole urgent thing and then only one player has to go stop it, no one else gets the payoff. Right. I guess this isn't a thing we talked about in the first half, and I'm just kind of riffing here before I get to the second question. But urgency is in some ways a call and response, right? This thing is urgent. It needs to be dealt with. The response for that is we're going to deal with it. But if we're going to deal with it means just the fighter, or you've created a problem that your wizard is like, I got a spell that'll close this up, and I don't need anyone else to do it. Like, wah, wah, right? Like you lose the payoff.
That's when you have creatures or whatever attack. And now you've got to protect the wizard while the wizard's doing the thing.
There's a great illustration in The Lost Caverns of Sojakanth, the illustration by Jim Holloway. It's in the second book where they talk about the spells, but it's a picture of a wizard with his arms raised casting a spell, another character like a monk or a rogue holding the book open, and the 3 fighter types standing kind of back to back behind them, guarding them. And I'm like, that's what you want to see during your climactic scene. It's the reason why I think so many heists go badly, because the GM doesn't write the heist to involve all the players. And so you end up with the rogue is there to be sneaky, and then 2 minutes later, the rest of the party gets bored and they just start killing everything in sight. It's not every party, but that happens a lot more often. And so you need to look at that as a GM and say, what can I do in each of these scenes? And sometimes you just have them, it was in the chat room, Chris mentioned that it's easier to run than it is to write. Sometimes you need to write it so that you've got, here are a bunch of complications you can stick in where necessary to involve the other players. Have them aside that, okay, if the rogue is doing all the sneaking and all the trap setting, maybe have a monster show up, or maybe have a spell that the rogue can't get by, or have a puzzle that the cleric has to solve. Because that's the other thing you see in a lot of these games is it can sometimes just become trap after trap after trap, and all that happens is the rogues are disarming things. Everybody's just, all right, let the rogue do their thing.
Yep.
And you don't want that.
Yeah. Good, Bob.
No, I was just going to say, if you leave a character off to the side getting bored, gonna get a Leroy Jenkins.
Yes, you definitely run. It is clear that all 3 of us have played role-playing games in the 80s, right? Like as kids, based on some of the things we're talking about here. But it's one of the things I really like about that Tales from the Loop mechanic is that you can't. So each player gets to come up with the thing that they're going to do, right? Like they get to pick the skill that they're going to contribute, which is awesome, right? And also lets them kind of lean towards the things that they're really good at. But because you need accumulated successes, there is no advantage for anyone to not participate in that final resolution, right? Like everyone needs to be in there rolling dice. So it's a really good way that it like pulls all the players in, but then it's open. So it says like, look, there isn't one solution to this. You guys tell me how you're going to resolve it. Tell me what skills you're going to use. Like, maybe you're going to like knock the deputy over because I'm going to run him over. I'm going to knock him over by, tripping him up, or we're going to sneak past him or whatever. I'm going to make a diversion using, my performance skill. Like, it doesn't matter, right? Like, everybody gets to contribute their best attribute, and then it all pulls in to overcoming the scene. I think it's a really smart mechanic, and actually smarter than I thought about until this moment. In terms of what it makes you do, and then the consequences for it. So yeah, it's good. All right,
and nothing says you can't borrow that to put in another game system.
No,
even if you've got a game that's very black and white in terms of success and failure, you can still have that sort of thing. So look at the games that do this and steal them for your other games.
Yeah, I mean, most cases what we're talking about is just an extended skill check. So have a bunch of people make skill checks. How many successes did you get? Right? How many successes versus how many failures? Or how many tries can people get before you rack up so many failures? Or, hey, Bob?
Yeah.
You want to put a pin in the idea of extended skill checks? Like, I think maybe what we'll do is do a, I don't know if we'll do it right away, but I'm feeling like we could do a garage and kind of take it apart and kind of look at, I think we may have done skill challenges in the past, maybe.
Yeah, we'll check.
But if it's been long enough, maybe we'll just come back and do it again.
We can always flesh that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're right, Jerry. Like, you can totally, if your game doesn't have this mechanic, it's not hard to put this mechanic into your game.
That's why I said I bastard after playing. I've actually only played Lake Bar twice, but we used it both times. But ever since I've done that, I have stolen that for every game I run. We try to stick that in there, and the players. The best part is once players know they can do that, they will turn lots of things that shouldn't be heists into heists, which I know plays to your wheelhouse a little bit, Phil. So, all right. So let's move on to question 2. So Phil and Bob, as a player, what do you do to help maintain urgency in a game?
You want to take this one first, Bob?
Yeah, I'm gonna dip into some of Jerry's, because Jerry wrote up his thing first before I got to the notes, and I'm like, yeah, that all sounds good.
Go for it. Go for it. I'm
gonna dip deep in yours. Be prepared. When something's going on, put down your devices, whatever, and get ready for your turn, because nothing will suck the urgency out of the game than getting to the point where it's like, hey, Bob, what are you gonna do? And then I stop and I look up how my spells work. Like, if I'm gonna do that, be ready to go, so that when it's like, okay, Bob, all right, I'm gonna jump in and I'm gonna throw this spell and see if we can do this. Because if you're not prepared, you're gonna suck the energy right out of it.
Yep.
Yeah. The other thing I'll say is, at some point during the game, you may feel like the urgency is wearing off, but like, your job as a player is to take the hook, right? When the hook is presented in front of you, your job is to take the hook.
Yeah.
So if the GM has set up this adventure to be about urgency, don't relax on it. Like, as a player, like, you need, even if you're not feeling it, if the bleed wears off, you need to just start acting it, right?
Yeah.
You need your character to still be taking actions, moving forward, and stuff like that. I'll give you a great example of a player like screwing around with this. So I ran this Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game many years ago, like in the 80s. And I did this thing where it was these mutant animals had taken hostages at a high school. I don't know why.
Because
because back then I sucked at writing adventures. So they just did. And the players show up, and I'm playing with this friend of a friend who's made this this military mutant bear named Mick Bear. And they roll on up to the situation, and the animals are like, look, we're here to help. I don't know why people believed them, but they did. Again, I wrote really bad adventures. So the McBear's like, okay, so he's like, give me the lowdown. What's going on? And the sheriff's like, okay, well, we've got these mutant terrorists. They're in the high school. They've got these kids all held up in the cafeteria. And they say they're going to kill one kid an hour until their demands are met. And so McBear's like, well, how many kids do they have? And they're like, well, about 120. And he goes, well, we've got some time. Right? No. And I was like, what? Now, to his credit, he actually, that group actually acted very quickly and defeated the terrorists. But in that moment, right, that like, well, we've got time. Like, I panicked like for a second as a GM because I'm like, well, this is supposed to be a game about urgency, right? Like, you can't relax on this and just be like, oh, we can lose a few, right? You can't be the FBI guys from Die Hard. You gotta like.
Well, it comes out that way. You gotta know your players too.
Yes, but as players, right? So we're talking about player side, right? Your job as a player is like, look, the GM has clearly set up an urgent situation here. You need to treat it as urgent. It's like playing Monopoly and deciding that you don't really want to get the most money. Right? You've like broken the social contract to it.
Yep. I think Chris put it there. You also need to talk about the stakes. As a player, you need to tell the GM when you're not feeling the urgency. You're
sure,
because maybe McBear doesn't care about human children. Maybe he feels, well, you know what? The humans have done horrible things to me. Why do I care what happens to their children?
So, yes, to be clear, I think it is. I think it's absolutely important for a GM who's writing an adventure to to have some understanding of their players and, be able to craft a situation that should rope them in. Right. But if the GM has met you halfway on it, you have to meet the GM the other half of the way.
Yes.
Yeah.
If the GM is off, right, and is like picked something that's like completely like, if you do this, Paylor is going to enter the planet and bring sunshine and good crops. And you're like, yeah, that sounds cool. Yeah, let that happen, right? Like then then as a GM, you have missed the point. I think this is harder when you're talking about published adventures, right? Published adventures don't know your players, right? So as a GM, you got to kind of have to see what the hook is for the adventure and decide like, will my players buy this? Will they not? Like I had to do this with you guys for DCC, right? The current adventure we're on, it like assumes that it's kind of murder hobo.
Yeah.
Right. And in fact, actually, this is a foreshadowing to next week's topic when we talk about not being murder hobos. But go ahead,
I think speaking about that's where I learned a lot from GMing for Dust Devil. Glenn was that Glenn showed me that one of the ways to fix that problem is whatever you want your stakes to be in that game. Start out the week by asking the players why they're interested. Don't have it's just taking 120 kids to school. Start out with okay, McBear, which of the children in that school is the one that brought you a picnic basket the day you were hungry?
Yes, and exactly. Who fed you? Who fed you in the woods? Yeah.
Because I ran a game where I didn't set stakes up where the players actually had any tie to the end, and their thing was all right. It's the fall in the water thing. None of us had a stake in rescuing that little girl's father.
Yep. I agree. Right. So this is the difference between 80s Phil. Right. Yeah. So 80s Phil, puts a bunch of school kids in a hostage situation. 2000s Phil, in my Redwater Blues adventure for Hydra Hackers, there's this project that you are working on called Blue Babies, which is named, which Jason actually named in a playtest, which is to provide blue water, right, pure water for infants. And the setup question as I'm setting up the adventure before I make the situation urgent is I ask everybody, what's your personal stake in Blue Babies? Like, do you have a kid? Do you have a nephew? Do you know somebody who, didn't get, good water when they were a kid? Was it you? That kind of thing. And all the players name what their personal stake is in Blue Babies. Then, like minutes later, I corrupt the entire tank of water with red water, right? Like and then the players are like, bastards. And then, they're off and running because you've built a sense of urgency through stakes. So that's different. That's the difference in what is that, like 20, 30 years of gaming? Like 30 years of gaming, right? The difference is like, now I just go make the players tell me those stakes. I don't try to guess them. I don't try to, and I think that's a great way to do, especially if you're doing a one shot and you have no history to work off of. That thing you said, Jerry's great. That leading question of, which kid fed you in the edge of the woods when you were hungry, right? That's a great question. Now you've got a kid now you have something you care about on the inside.
That's right.
Yeah.
Unless
and again,
you're a completely cold-hearted bastard, then
you know what? Then
go play another game.
Yeah. Like there are like, again, and this is where I say like, so if I go to a one shot, game and the GM has done a so job on this, then I will jump in and push it forward.
Yeah.
Right. Like I will ham it up a little to make it more urgent because I get where the GM's going, but maybe they didn't quite get us there. Right. So then going back to our question, right. As a player, how do you help with that? I think sometimes you get out and push, right. Yep. Like, even if you're not feeling it.
The only two things I would add, number one, things you can do as a player. First, during tense scenes, keep the chatter focused on the game. Don't do outside jokes and distractions. If the GM start trying to tell you about, what's counting down, don't interrupt to sing, it's the final countdown, kind of stuff like that. Pay attention to what's going on. Keep focused on the game. And second, pay attention. And this is something I think we're all guilty of at times. If there's a discussion going on, it's a planning session, take notes that help come to a quick conclusion. Don't let the planning go on for too long. Nothing slows a game down than people spending an hour trying to figure out what to name the goddamn mule. Just, pay attention. And if it's not moving along, just turn to the players and go, okay, guys, we got to move on. What are we going to do here? My catchphrase, I didn't say it was a good idea. I said it's what we're going to do. And, move the group forward. Sometimes picking a bad solution will force everybody else to pick the good one.
I think that's even easier if your game has fail forward, right? So if your game has fail forward, picking a suboptimal solution often just means shit's going to get more interesting.
Yeah.
I think it helps, right? I think that the old school mindset of games where it's like, oh, you picked a suboptimal path. Oh, your characters are all getting killed.
Yeah.
Right. Like that. And we've talked about this in other episodes about planning and stuff, right? If the stakes are too high, you will overplan. Right. But if the stakes are softer, like, oh, there's fail forward or, you're more likely to get captured than killed. Like then people are like, like that's a good enough plan. Let's let the good times roll.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, as a player, you can also facilitate that, right? You can also tell people like, hey, we got to get moving.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sometimes picking the suboptimal plan is more fun anyway.
Yeah. It isn't a PBTA game.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Half a plan is way better than a whole plan.
Yep. I got 13% of a plan.
It's barely.
I am Groot.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's more than 12%, but who cares? Bob, you got anything on this one?
I started, remember?
Oh, sorry.
Still part of Jerry's answer.
Sorry, we stayed in this part of the topic so long I forgot.
It's a good topic.
That's right.
That's good. All right, you want to hit up the question? I'll hit up question 3. All right, so as a GM, how do you help when players get lost during an urgent situation? Right? I'm sorry, not just as a GM or player. Feel free to answer it in any context. But like it's supposed to be urgent, and now like everybody's either gotten mired in details or sidetracked or are chilling out having personal character conversations, and the urgency is kind of fading away. What do you do to bring that back?
For me, it's sorry, go ahead, Bob. Go.
I would probably do some in-character conversation where my character would then start asking other characters, like, "Hey, what do you think we should do? How are we gonna solve this thing?" Like, try and engage them and bring them back in so that we can turn the focus.
That's really good, because if you ask that question and none of the players have an answer, that tells the GM that they need more direction.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually a really good. That's a really good point. Which goes to our first segment where we were talking about if players don't understand what they need to do, they will kind of lose the urgency part of it.
Yeah. Yep. At that point, maybe the GM just needs to go, okay, wait, was I not 100% clear? If you don't do something, this temple is going to get sucked into the astral plane, and everybody that's in there that you love is going to be gone forever. Oh, I thought, no, okay. I got it. Okay. Oh, we got to stop that.
Or at least get the people we love out of the temple.
Yeah.
One of the two.
There you go.
More than one solution.
Yeah. What do you got?
Well, for me, of course, my big thing, of course, is NPC. If possible, when I'm running a game, I love it when the players decide to adopt some sort of NPC or AI in the group, whoever they like. I don't try to force one on, let them pick who they like. Somebody they like and they trust. They can even use it as a backup character, which helps when we split the group, that somebody can play the NPC briefly. And then if they get stuck, have the NPC just give a simple nudge, hit, or even orders to the group. Sometimes you have to go beyond that. Have the gods or the AI, their patron, Dragon Marked House, our friend the computer, Admiral Akbar, Shield, Chess, Fish, or even Seven Zark 7. Contact them and tell them, hey, you guys need to go do this right now. Or, hey, you know what? The temple's about to get sucked into another dimension, and if you guys don't do something about it, as the gods, we're going to be a little pissed off at you. Do that sort of thing. And lastly, just remember, Raymond Chandler once said, when in doubt, have a man come through a door with a gun in his hand. Use some sort of change of action. If they're stuck on something, change the dynamic, change the beat immediately, and make it more tense. Make it different, make it more interesting.
To paraphrase Fred Hicks, who paraphrased Raymond Chandler, when in doubt, send ninjas.
Yeah, ninjas kick down the door.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that always helps, right? So
every story is better with ninjas.
Right, but here's the thing to that. Here's the thing to that statement of what's really being said, right? It's the same. Chandler is saying the same thing. Fred Hicks is saying the same thing as Raymond Chandler is, which is change the beat, right? If you're in a beat where the urgency is lost, introduce an urgent beat, right? So having the door kicked in and having, ninjas or having cultists who are bent on you not saving the temple from being sucked into the astral plane come in and try to get you, right, changes the intensity. Like, why are they trying to stop us? Like, clearly this has got to be bad. We got to get there faster, kind of thing, right? So that statement, which I love, right, because I think that statement's awesome, but that statement is basically saying change the beat. So it's the hint to you are in the middle of a down beat or a resting beat. It's time to turn the intensity back up, right? Just like Skrillex, you just gotta, you gotta drop it, right? Just boom. Maybe you're not gonna get that reference. It's okay.
Yeah. Who is? I was gonna ask, who is Skrillex?
We'll get into it later. It's an electronic music thing. I'm just saying, like, it's a dubstep thing. You gotta just drop like that. Anyway, but that's the point, right? Change up the beat, make it more intense. The thing that I will do, and I really like what Bob said, is if I sense the players are missing something, right? Either missing why this is urgent, missing how they can help to fix it, whatever, then one of the things I will do at kind of a meta level is I will kind of just do like a little recap. All right. I'll say to the players, like, cool, like, so here's what you know so far, right? You know that the blood cleric has gone to the temple and is casting a ritual to pull the temple into the astral plane, and that probably they'll complete it in the next 30 or 40 minutes. What's your overall plan so far? Right? Like I go into that same mode I use in meetings at work where I sense that no one knows where we're going, and I start just kind of like guiding them into starting to make some decisions. Right? I have a I'm very, I don't know if it's very fortunate. I'm very lucky. I get to use this skill in two places, right? I use it at the GM table all the time, but I use it at work all the time because it's my job is to get a whole bunch of smart people to do smart things by often just getting them to talk to each other and figure it out. So, I start that process where I reframe the picture, right? Let them like see it again clearly, and then start asking some questions like, so you guys so far what I get from your plan is that you're on your way to go get this mystic artifact, right? What are you going to do once you have the mystic artifact? Like, what does that give you? Right. And then and just let them pull it all together. Often a little bit of that and it'll all snap into the place for the players, or it will become incredibly clear to you what piece they're missing. Right. Like as you hear them describe it or try to figure it out and you're like, hey, wait a second. Don't you guys remember last session? And this is always the case, right? It's something that happened last session. Like, don't you guys remember last session? The NPC told you that like, if you got this relic that you'd be able to cast this ritual. Oh, right. The relic, right? Like everybody forgot about it last session. So that kind of huddle up is my tool, right? To get things back on track.
That's a good thing to do in general, is to get the players talking, because you'll find things out. Every once in a while, you get a game where the players come up with a course of action based entirely on the idea that they think their best ally is actually the villain, and vice versa. And that can be why they're so confused, because they're not trusting the information that they're getting from somebody, and they're trusting information they should be. It's good to get players in game chatter. Occasionally is really good to have back and forth.
Yeah, I don't think it hurts to stop sometimes and have like a sync up where you're just like, okay, cool. Let's just talk about what's going on here for a second. What do you all think is happening? Right? Like, or, is Lex Luthor really your friend? Like,
that kind of depends.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that I mentioned that's exactly what's happening in our Rippers campaign that we're playing, that
right.
by like session 8, the players had all pretty much figured out that the organization we were working for were being deliberately incompetent and that they were all the bad guys, which is not what's actually happening. But everything that we had observed leading up to that made us think that. And so we didn't trust anything they told us. And we just automatically assumed that everybody they sent us to meet was a bad guy. And it made it very difficult for the GM to get us to do other motivations for a while. So,
yeah, I mean, those things are tough, right? Like,
it's not the GM's fault either. It's just a bad campaign.
Yeah, but like when you wind up with that weird gap in what's supposed to be happening and the player's perception of what's happening.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like it's, it's great if it's Three's Company, right? Like that misunderstanding's like, the plot of a Three's Company episode. It's terrible when it's like the middle of your game and, everybody thinks that, their pal Lex, the billionaire is their buddy. And you're like, Lex Luthor. And they're like, what? I just thought Lex, like, I don't know. I thought Lex was his last name. Like, yeah, I mean, those things can.
Doom.
What's that?
Our friend Von Doom.
Yeah. Victor, your friend Victor, right? Like somehow everybody missed the part where his last name was like Doom, right? Like, no, Victor's cool. Victor can come with us. Like, are you guys sure? Yeah. Victor's great.
Wait, how could Victor possibly betray us like that? I don't get it.
Right.
What?
Yeah. I mean, but those things happen, right? Those gaps in information can lead to really weird things happening. And so sometimes just having that sync up where it's like, all right, guys, let's just kind of go back over, let's track back over this. Like we'll fix those things. And sometimes you got to like even retcon a little, like, no way would I have given Victor, the keys to the Marvel 1 rocket. Like, oh yeah, no, that makes sense. You're right. He probably doesn't have the keys, right? Like, yeah. So I do think that's so yeah, I like all those suggestions, right? The NPC, the change in beat, and the huddle up, right? The meta level huddle up to kind of get people on the same page.
Good question, Phil.
Yeah,
yes,
that was a good one.
Yeah. I mean, these are the things that we face as GMs, right? Especially if you're trying to run the urgent adventure and you're kind of wondering, like, why is nobody being urgent right now? You got to do a little of this. Cool. All right, that's our topic on urgency, right? Hope you have some deeper understanding of what urgency is, how to best use it in your game, maybe a few techniques for making it happen. Let's go check out the chat room one more time, and then we'll roll over to Conversation Corner and talk a little bit more about life.
So apparently, 7 Zark 7 wasn't just a random thing that Jerry threw out, because Evil John caught it and wondered.
Yeah, from Battle of the Planets.
Yeah. I don't remember it. It's been so long since I saw Battle of the Planets.
He's the robot they made for the American version.
Because
everything I tossed out in there was something. Chess and Fish are from Elementals and Vigilantes. It's just why they kind of give people something. And of course, Phil knows who our friend Computer is.
Of course. Our friend Computer is a great way to get unstuck. Like in Paranoia, if you bog down too much and the computer calls, it's fantastic. Like, hey, troubleshooters, you must already be at the mission site. Give me a sit rep. And they're all like, well, friend Computer.
You see, what had happened is
I'm going to send the Vulture squad to come vaporize one of your asses.
Oh man.
But yeah, in Paranoia, when the computer calls because people aren't taking things like urgently enough, it's the best because there's no good answer.
No.
Right? You never ask what's happening, right? The computer just already assumes like, well, the mission's pretty much wrapped up, right? Well, you see. Right. Is there treasonous activity? Is that why you're late? Have you identified the traitor? Right? Like,
do I have to send a squad in to?
I'm sure, team lead, that you can solve this problem and find the traitor before I have to send a Vulture squadron.
Yes, I can.
Right.
Where did those termination papers go?
Oh my goodness.
Well, yes, friend Computer. That is why we had to kill Laserbait off so early.
Yeah, okay. Well, that makes sense. Good job.
He was a commutant traitor.
Yeah. Good job. I'll recalculate your arrival time to be in 10 minutes. Great. Yeah.
Thank you, friend Computer.
Yeah.
Of course, that's perfect.
I love
oh God, I need a bouncy bubbly beverage.
Right. Little Tila O'Malley, bouncy bubbly beverage, relax. Remember
in Paranoia, there's a difference between petroleum jelly and jelly petroleum.
Correct. One of those.
Yes.
That's in one. Oh my God, that's the best.
That's from me and my Shadow Mark IV.
Which is, Jerry, my all-time favorite. I'm sorry. It is one of my all-time favorite Paranoia adventures.
It is.
It is amazing. I have run it so many times. I love that adventure so much. I'll tell you offline. I will tell you a story about Mikey the Lightbot. It's such a good jellied petroleum is a very different
something that you want to be rubbing in sensitive areas.
It is a thing you want to roll at the horde of commies that are coming to invade and shoot with a laser.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, anything going on in the chat room? They're kind of quiet tonight.
They're engrossed in the topic, so
I'm just gonna assume they're engrossed in the topic. Otherwise, they're not entertaining us.
Yes.
That's all right.
Schmitty commented that Spider-Man Homecoming is a perfect example of the player character group not realizing when their best ally is actually their enemy. Is actually both Spider-Man movies are that.
Yeah.
The first one is Vulture. So, yeah.
The second one. Oh my God. That's, you know what? I will say it. I've said it before. I was lukewarm to the idea of Mysterio being in the second movie, but the MCU version of Mysterio was so good.
Yeah. You know what? I want you to have these uber powerful glasses that can control all of Stark's technology. You take them.
Yeah.
Trust you completely. Oops.
Oh, only a teenager.
Only a teenager.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
Oh,
all right,
man.
Well, good. If they're quiet, we can wrap up. We'll roll over to the conversation corner.
Conversation corner. You know what that means.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We just played the sound. Oop, I played two sounds.
Which, by the way, for listeners and the chat room, while maybe you guys can hear the bumper sounds, we co-hosts on Zoom cannot. So yes. Jerry and I are just literally hoping that Bob's playing the correct sounds.
And not just dead air.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or he's playing the wrong sounds for all we know, right?
Yeah.
Like, all right, cool. So
actually one comment, Evil John's most recent comment was really good. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, John's favorite example of urgency in clocks are in Terminator. He gets to the phone book and looks for Sarah Connor, and there's 3 of them. So now you know he's got to go in some kind of methodical fashion, and hopefully he doesn't get to the right one right away.
Well, and if you remember the movie, right, Sarah Connor goes out for dinner, right? Her roommate's hooking up, so she goes out to dinner. She's in this bar, and she looks up at the TV, and the newscaster is talking about how 2 Sarah Connors have been killed.
Yep.
Right, and that police are looking for another Sarah Connor before
something happens.
Before something happens, urgent, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I think it's ramped up the tension a little bit.
You totally just cranked up the tension, right? Like, Sarah Connor, that's my name, right? Like, what?
Boy, that was an 80s conversation. Watching the news on TV when they hear about looking up something in the phone book.
Yes.
Hey, Jerry, I had to stop the Terminator movie and explain the white pages to Dante when we were watching it.
Savannah, a phone book is the piece of text
that had everybody's phone number.
It was phone number in it.
It was a big paper contact list with everybody's contacts in it.
It was good for putting in a pillowcase and beating people with, though, if they came on your front porch.
I used to use it for. I used to take ours, and I would put at Christmas time. I'd put a white sheet over it to make the hills for the little porcelain village.
There you go.
Because I don't know what the hell else you do with a phone book. Like,
if you're one of those, big burly dudes, you show strength by ripping it in half.
What you do is you glue the last 30 pages together. And then you take the rest of it, you hollow out a center, and you hide important things inside the phone book because you know that nobody's going to look there for anything ever.
Wow, Jerry, that's kind of brilliant.
Wasn't always a cop.
All right, so conversation corner, like, what's going on with life? I mean, we're all still in lockdown, right? New York is like literally the epicenter of the U.S. portion of COVID-19. For people who aren't familiar with Buffalo geography, we are 8 hours from New York City, so we're actually not terribly close to New York City. But nevertheless, we have cases in our county, and those cases are rising every day.
Stay home, people.
Yeah,
stay at home. Wash your hands.
Yeah.
I
can't
do this. I have to work from my office with my staff, so I'm still going out every day because we're an essential service. One of our customers did give us a 5-gallon container of 80% antiseptic hand sanitizer today.
Wow, that's pretty nice of them.
Well, they're making it. They're one of the wineries that's making it, so they're giving it away to. We bought a whole thing of it, but they are making it for people. There are now like 5 wineries in the Western New York area that are making hand sanitizer. A lot of them are giving it away for free if you bring your own 4-ounce bottle on weekends. So if you are in the Buffalo, Rochester area, check, just Google wineries free hand sanitizer if you're getting low, and you can go get some every weekend.
There you go.
And I believe our governor freed up money for that because he's trying to get 7,000 gallons of hand sanitizer per week back into the economy up here, and he's freed up money for it. So, anyway, and other wineries in other areas may have that. It's a place they can convert over. It takes them about 4 days to convert over, and then once they make their first batch, they have to let it sit for 72 hours. So by now, places that we're starting to convert over should start having it available.
Interesting.
And they really appreciate it if you bring your own bottle, because that's the one thing they're having trouble getting.
Sure, bottles have got to be the difficult part.
But not just in New York. So take a look.
Yeah, I am to the point now where when I leave the house, and I don't leave the house very often, but when I do, like if I'm going to go pick up food or, go to the grocery store or something, I now just take a small bottle of hand sanitizer and throw it in my sweatshirt pocket.
Yep.
And just I always sanitize my hands before I start touching my steering wheel. So in the threat levels of my life, right, my house is clear. I'm not too worried about washing my hands inside the house if no one has gone out of the house.
Yeah.
My car is like the yellow zone, right? Like I go into it clean. And I sanitize my hands anytime I interact with the world before I touch it. So I'm reasonably confident my car is okay. And then once I'm out in the world, then I just kind of treat everything as suspicious, right? So like I have one sweatshirt I wear out and then I just wash it in the wash. Not every day, but like I keep it hung up. And then like if I'm going to go out, I throw the hoodie on. But I do things like I've caught myself doing these things, and I'm not I don't have any problem with them, but I have things like I'm not opening doors with my hands. I'm opening them with my sweatshirt sleeve. Right. And so, and then when I get back to the car, I sit down in the car and quick sanitize my hands and then start, and then put my hands back on the wheel and drive. Even if I get drive through, like I've gone to Tim Hortons and gotten a coffee. And Tim Hortons is great. Everybody at Tim Hortons has gloves on, right? Like it's great. Like they take my credit card with a pair of gloves on. Now, gloves are great. I don't know how many times they're changing them. So all the same, still it's still a red zone, right? So I get my coffee and then I hand sanitize my hands. And sometimes I'll just like rub the coffee right with a little hand sanitizer on the outer cup because I'm going to keep picking up the cup. Yeah. Right. Yeah, so I've been doing that. I've been mostly in the house. Like I went out Friday to get some Popeyes before our luncheon. But I was not happy. I mean, I was luckily not I luckily did not fail my fortitude saving throw for Popeyes. But I did not like, I did not enjoy it. I've been eating food at home, like cooked food and stuff that I did not have a good time getting Popeyes. So I'm, like I'm not regretting, like I kind of like, if it was quieter, it would be easier, but like working from home's been kind of like great. Like I eat breakfast in the morning, put my dish in the sink, walk like 10 feet, sit down at my computer, get to work. Lunchtime, I just walk back in the kitchen. I like make myself something to eat, like something like good to eat. So like, I don't know, like I'm making it work, right? Like I see you guys like a few times a week now on Zoom. So and I talk to almost every one of you like in the evening on Minecraft. Yeah. At least for a little bit. So I don't feel isolated. I do miss like going out to like have a bite to eat with you guys, like the pre-show dinner. And I miss recording like in person. Like, I like when we record remotely, conversations are always a little more stilted, where when we do it live, like you never have those, the handoffs are always really clean, which, it's just what we have to do right now. But yeah, I'm reading a ton of games. I just finished reading Trophy Gold. That looks really interesting. I kind of want to just do a one shot of that at some point. just to try it out. It's a pretty light game. But it's like a cool game. Like I like it, but it's like a light rules, just a couple roll kind of game. A lot of story. So I think it would fit all of us very well.
That's cool.
And I'm finishing up Icons, as we're gearing up for our campaign. And I'm reading Solar Blades and Cosmic Spells, which is cool. It's a big, thick book, though. It's going to take a little while to read through all of it, but I'm not in a rush. So
yeah,
that reminds me, Phil. I found today somebody sent me a chart that converts Icons, Marvel, and DC Heroes stats. So you can look at them, so you can get an idea of how different power levels would factor against each other.
That's cool. Yeah,
I'll send it to you guys. It's useful.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, Icons is great. Icons is like a whole bunch of fate twisted up in its DNA. Like there's no, I'm like, well, that's a fate point. Those are aspects, and I don't say that in a bad way. Like
no.
I'm pretty happy, like how Steve Kennison incorporated those mechanics into the game. Because I'm like reading it, and I'm like, I'll be fine. This is going to be like running Fate. Like, this will be okay. Oh, I don't know. What are you guys doing to pass time? Like, what else are you guys doing? I know you're playing Minecraft, but are you guys doing anything else?
Working. I mean, because I work for the office, I'm normally from like 7:30 till like 6:00 at night. I'm not home anyway because I'm working the day and then trying to catch up with everything else. We're lucky here that in New York State, the Small Business Association is doing like 3 webinars a week on all the new laws. So it's been nice to work on those, but it means I'm taking that time up. But lots of gaming at night. We did FM Gamers last night. Tonight we have this. Tomorrow we have the game that Chris and Bob and Weregator and Andrew Drew are in. Thursday we've got DCC. Friday we're going to have Eberron. And we just started now on the alternating Thursdays. We're doing Call of Cthulhu Old West.
Yeah.
So there's gaming. Like this is the week that I game Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And next week is going to be, I count this as gaming, is going to be Thursday or Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. It's going to be a lot of that kind of stuff. So there's still a lot of good social connection. But that's also why you're not seeing me on Minecraft up till 2 a.m. anymore. As I'm just trying to get it. I miss the good conversations though. So
I'm bad because I'm like, well, I don't have to commute into work, so if I don't get up till like 7:30, I can still get to my desk by 8:30. Like,
yeah.
I am struggling. I shouldn't say struggling. I've resigned myself. I'm going to break out the clippers and do my hair this weekend. Like, I can't take it. It's too long. I wanted to get a haircut right before the governor closed all the hair places, and it's too long, and it's not going to get any shorter in the next couple of weeks. So I watched a bunch of YouTube videos on how to do a brush cut, and it seems reasonably okay. So I don't know. Next week, we'll see what my hair looks like.
PK Sullivan solved that problem. He went clean. Gone, man.
I don't think I can. So two parts. Jason's like, grow it long. So here's the thing. One, I don't think I can take it off because I think my head's big. And I think if I take it off, I'm going to look like D'Onofrio as the Kingpin, right? Like, and two, I can't grow it long because my hair is like really curly. You can't tell that because I keep my hair really short. And if you're friends with me because you see me at conventions, you would never know that because I get my hair cut before I go to every convention, where my hair is like absolutely its shortest, right? But my hair is like really long and like my hair gets really wavy, and the longer it gets, the more wavy and curly and poofy it gets. And Bob remembers from the 90s, it's fucking tragic looking after a certain length. Like, I will find a picture. I will put it up on, I will put it up in either the Slack room or on Twitter on why I need to keep my hair cut. It is not flattering. Like, it's not a good picture. So no. I will take a misshapen brush cut with a razor before I let it go all the way back out. One of the first things I will do when they lift that band is go to Supercuts and get my hair cut again. Like, I will definitely be doing that at the end. Oh man, it's so weird.
Yeah,
it's so weird. I talked to Dante about it. I'm like, dude, like, your kids are going to ask this question. Like, what did you do during the pandemic? Which will just be mostly like, I stayed at home and did homework. Right. Like, but it's just, it's weird. Stores are still a little hit and miss. My favorite pizzeria closed. I don't know if they closed just because they had business slowed down, or if something happened in the restaurant. But Ulysses isn't open right now. Like, that's they were a local pizzeria. That kind of breaks my heart. One, because I hate to see them having to shut down, but two, I'm also terrified. Like, what if they don't reopen? Like,
yeah.
I haven't had to go search for good pizza in some time. I'm not sure I'm prepared.
That would be another huge loss, because just before the pandemic really ramped up, we lost Mandarin.
My favorite Chinese restaurant with the best egg rolls in Buffalo.
Oh, man.
The only thing I'd tell you, Phil, is you live in Buffalo, so finding a good pizza parlor is not going to be a huge stretch.
No, I got to go back to I got to go back and start looking again and trying some places. And I mean, that's the, that's the thing. Ulysses was perfect. The pizza was good every time I went. They were always nice. Honestly, I've gone enough times that I didn't even have to say my name. Like, I could just walk in, they would just pull my pizza off the top of the thing and like make me pay for it. Like, cool. I dug that place. So yeah, I'm hoping that, and even when the pandemic started, we were getting pizzas from Ulysses because I wanted to make sure that, we were spending, like, if we were going to spend money to get food out, I wanted to make sure it was going to, local businesses. Not to say that I'd screw chains, because chains have people who are local that work at them too.
Yeah.
But
Ulysses is, Ulysses doesn't have a corporate backer.
Yeah.
To help them out. So.
I mean, on the one hand, I applaud the strip clubs in Washington that are doing boober, because they've converted themselves over. However, the only strip clubs near me, I wouldn't order girls from there, let alone order food from there.
I mean, you gotta give Portland credit for,
it's
working.
A brilliant idea.
Like, you got, basically your entire business model just collapsed, right? Like, groups of people in your bar, like, that's out. What are you going to do? Right. So, good on them for trying to innovate.
Yeah. It's creative.
From what I understand, they ramped up their food production. The cooks and bartenders are now doing all the cooking. The girls are doing all of the car to house delivery, and all the bouncers are acting as drivers, so the girls aren't exposed. It's a good business model.
That's good operation.
And some of the girls are spending time sanitizing everything down and making sure that everything, they go in pairs. So it's a good, because they said, these people aren't going to be able to get unemployment because of their work status. They're all 1099. So
yes,
let's keep them employed.
Yeah, I've been trying to do my part to help out local businesses. I just got takeout yesterday from Teton Kitchen.
Oh, that place is great.
Really good Asian food, and
yes,
they have the whole situation on lockdown. They took the entrance and they actually put up a literal wall with a window in it, and that hole that they could pass the food through. And you come into this little 2-foot vestibule to pick up your order, and then they're all gloved up and masked up and everything, making the food and everything. They got the whole thing locked down pretty well. So the food was so good.
Dunn Tire, I went to, because I have to get my snow tires taken off. They have a cup of pens. They tell you, once you take a pen, do not put it back, put it in this box. And then after customers leave, they disinfect all the pens again and put them
Nice.
back. They're doing a lot of restaurants and places are doing. Somebody mentioned if they're wearing gloves. I've seen a lot of places where they've got gloves on, but they hand you your food, they wipe their hand, they disinfect their gloves. They take your credit card, they disinfect the credit card, put it in the thing, disinfect it, and give it back to you. And I like the fact that we're seeing good social distancing and intelligent cleanliness here.
Yeah.
I went and got ice cream the other night for the kids from Dairy Queen down the street, and it was great. Like I walked up and the person who just ordered, who was waiting for their order, just like stepped back like 8 feet to let me come up and put my order in. Then I stepped back like 8 feet. Like, it was very.
So far, everybody that I've seen out and about when I've had to go out is being very smart about all of this and doing the right thing.
Even at the big grocery store here in Buffalo is Wegmans. At the ones that I've been to, you don't get in line for a cart. They have all the registers open, and you queue up at a post where there's a girl standing there, and they've got tape on the floor, and you pull your cart up to here, and the next cart goes back to the next one. So you're standing about 6 feet apart, and then she tells you, okay, she's got to walk. Okay, register 2. You go to that one, and so people aren't standing clustered up in lines or keeping the number of people in the place down. It's helpful because, Danny Wegman can just make that decision from the top down. He doesn't have to answer to anybody. He just says, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
I think Wegmans will survive this whole thing.
I think all grocery stores will survive. I mean, they can't keep anything on the shelves. I used to work for a grocery store, right? Like groceries, there's no situation where a grocery store doesn't do well. Economics doesn't matter. Recession, prosperity doesn't matter. Everybody buys food, right? Like it was the one thing, like when I was growing up as a kid, when I would come home from college, I would just call the grocery store. They'd immediately put me on the schedule. It wasn't even a question of, is there is there an opening? Like I would just call and be like, hey, I'm coming home next week from school. And they'd be like, cool. Why don't you show up on, Wednesday at 4:00? You'll start your first shift. We'll give you the rest of your hours when you get here. Like there is never a shortage at a grocery store. So in times of crises, it's even less of a shortage because as we're seeing, like grocery clerks are, literally now the front lines, right? Like they're out there exposed. Like I thank every cashier who checks me out, right? Like, thank you for being in today. Like,
I don't know how it is where you guys are, but out here, the nice thing is Walmart and the grocery stores also have the big box of wet wipes. As you walk in the store, so there's somebody disinfecting every cart that comes in. And then you go in, you can pick up a wet wipe down the cart again, and you can grab 2. Like I just grab 2 or 3. I keep one that I put my hand on, and one I just use to pick things up off the shelf and wipe it off before I put it in my cart. And so it's doing a good job of keeping things clean.
I mean, it makes you feel safe, right? I mean, it'll be interesting what things we learn from this, right? Or what habits we all pick up. Like, I wonder how long it will take me not to have hand sanitizer in my coat pocket.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I have to imagine it's going to be a while, right? Are we all going to start, going out with masks on if we're not feeling well? Probably. Right.
That would not surprise me.
It not only would not surprise me, I think there's nothing wrong with it. Hopefully it leads to some better change, like, actual paid sick leave for people.
Yeah. Universal healthcare.
I've worked for some pretty, I've worked for some places where not where I currently work, but I have worked some places in the past, and not where Bob worked, the one in the middle, where taking time off for being sick was frowned upon.
Oh yeah.
Like, suck it up and come into the office and work was like kind of a motto at that place.
Yep.
And that is just, like, now we understand, like, that is awful. Like, it was awful back then.
Yeah.
But like, it's deadly now.
I tell people to get out of your office if they're sick.
Right. I mean, people should have. My current office, we're very fortunate, right? We have separate sick time from our vacation time, and so we have a pretty strong thing. Like, don't come into the office if you're not feeling well. Like just don't. Which was it's tough, right? Like, I mean, I get it. Like, I mean, I've gone to work, at past jobs with a fever, right? Like, walked in the door with a fever and like, trying to work, half passing out at my desk because I, didn't have or didn't want to take a sick day. Like, dumb.
Yeah.
But I get why people do it because they don't have it or they lose income. Like
that's place like where I am and where you are now, where it's like, oh, stay home. Even still, you're going to have people that are like, on the fence about it, or like, I really need to get this thing done and it's easier to do at the office than to do it remotely or whatever. So I've been on the hand sanitizer train for a while because when for example, if I need to use the bathroom, sometimes I have to go through a couple of doors.
Yep.
There, I'm grabbing door handles. So door handles, who knows who grabbed the door handle before me? So every time I do that, I get back to my desk, I hit the hand sanitizer, and I make sure.
I always have hand sanitizer at my desk, and same thing, right? Like I will come back from I wasn't always diligent about it. I was diligent the last couple of weeks, like leading up to the lockdown. Like I got really good at like, I'd come back from the bathroom, hand sanitize, sit down, sit and touch my keyboard then. So, all right. So
I'll say one last thing. As somebody who had chronic allergies for years, I always had hand sanitizer because I would sneeze, use a tissue, and then when I sanitize your hands, number one, sometimes they got a little gooey, and sometimes even if you just the people around you it was that peace of mind if they heard you sneeze, blow your nose, and then they heard that noise. Oh, he's good. He's it's that peace of mind for the people. So it's something we can continue to do. It's not a big deal. That's why though I have a quart of hand sanitizer that's been in my car for a year now, right? So just in case.
So I'm going to divert us just a little. Not that I don't think there's value in talking about some of the pandemic stuff, but also because I don't want to spam one button on the panel. So what are you guys watching? Like what things are you like? What entertainment are you consuming?
Tiger King.
Watching.
Are you watching it? Is it just bonkers?
It is. It's like a character from a role playing game. It is a gay country music loving gun toting cowboy who raises giant tigers, has a feud with a most likely murderous woman, and gets involved in a murder for hire plot. Except that it's all true.
Sounds like a Riffs character. Like
it does. It's bizarre. I watched the first 5 minutes. I'm like, oh, I'm hooked on this damn thing.
All right, so I'm gonna just have to put that on my list. Like that's I hear so many people say it's so bonkers that like it has to be seen to really to understand it.
As much as that is a trigger for you to jump into it, that's just as much a trigger for me to like, whatever, I don't care. Like,
that's cool.
I'm not. I've been honestly, because a lot of the series that I've been watching every season are kind of on mini breaks for the spring. Like there's gaps in the schedule for the CW superhero shows. There's Magnum PI hasn't been on for like 6 weeks. I think the next one's like April 10th. I'm like all these gaps. So I've been doing things like catching up, like watching a movie again that I already like, an MCU movie, or checking out what's on the current list of broadcast stuff or whatever. But I've also been watching a lot of stand-up comedy on Netflix because I discovered that I needed some more laughter for various reasons. So I've been watching a bunch of stand-up comedy and finding new stand-up comics that I really enjoy. So plus
nice.
Picard.
Yes.
They've extended the free period for CBS All Access to 60 days now.
All right, so I got to get in. I got to get in and start watching.
The Picard show is awesome. There's some people that complain about it. I'm like, whatever. I enjoyed the hell out of it. I thought it was great.
I did too.
They sent me a survey today, and in the survey they kept talking about Lower Decks, which is the animated series about the other types of characters,
Sure.
or ranking people. And they kept there was like an option on the list of like, which ones have you been watching and this and that. And I'm like, Lower Decks hasn't started yet. Why are you asking me about it when it hasn't actually dropped? So I got a feeling that it's dropping soon. But
That's cool.
Picard, good. What else did I just get done watching? The Altered Carbon season 2 was not that long ago, which
I gotta finish that up.
Me too.
But yeah, it's is a lot of good stuff that I've been watching. Just trying to divert my mind from certain things and stuff like that. And then working on gaming stuff, obviously, because games.
Clone Wars is back.
Yeah. What was that?
The Clone Wars.
Oh yeah, Clone Wars, yeah. I'm trying to think what other game stuff I was looking at. So I'm just kind of chugging through like a bunch of different game things. I'm coming up with my idea. I'm writing one of the incursions for Trophy Gold, right? So I read the Trophy Gold rules to get a feel for the game. Now I got a pretty good idea. I'm gonna go pitch my high level idea for that because while I'm not doing much, I might just I have plenty of time to work on the incursion. I might just start messing around with it a little. Like I said, I've been reading a couple other games. I've got a few things that I'm just kind of chugging through, like Icons, which I'm getting. We'll be playing shortly. We did our session 0. We did the first part of our session 0 where we took our Masks timeline, our timeline for Halcyon City from Masks. And we decided to play in the same universe, playing with Icons, because we just wanted to play supers without all the teen angst, because we were looking for something a little less heavy. And we picked a section of our timeline, which was Y2K. We had our whole session. It was Bob, Tony, Glenn, and I. And we blew out that timeline and kind of like got some more details on it and used that to start figuring out our character concepts, which I think are pretty solid. And it's a pretty interesting section of our Halcyon City's timeline. It's after this major cosmic invasion during this rebuilding time. And I think, Bob, you're playing a villain that became a good guy, right?
Yeah, basically, I decided that I'm going to be a guy who got powers against his will by being experimented on by a nefarious company, and he went off and was like trying to get revenge against them and the people who did it to him, and was doing villainous things. And then when this cosmic invasion happened, he realized he needed to step up and help out, and then came to the conclusion, like I really shouldn't be a bad guy. I should be a good guy. So that's the path that I'm taking.
I love it. I love it. I'm psyched to hear how the other characters come out. And we're going to finish up our character gen, probably do some questions, talk about you guys as a super team, and then maybe we'll have some time to go punch some villains for our next game. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
I didn't even tell you this. I talked to the people at Free League. And they sent me the images for the card backs and the cards from the deck so that I can put them in Roll20.
Nice.
So I should be able to make up our initiative cards in Roll20 and have them look just like like the cards from the game.
So it's the kind of cooperation that I like from a gaming company. Like, oh yeah, here's the images, go do the thing.
Free League's very nice about it. I think there's a print and play version of those cards, whatever. I own them, right? Like I basically own everything for Forbidden Lands at this point that's been published. So yeah, I'm looking forward to. We're not quite there yet. We have I think another session's worth of action, and then I'm going to be able to do some campaign development stuff. I've had more material than we've covered in play. So I haven't had to actually do some prep in a little while. So in a couple more weeks, I'll have to do some prep, and I'm kind of looking forward to it. Right? I haven't sat down and done some real story prep in a little while, and I'm going to get to do it with Icons too, which is actually exciting. And like Jerry said, we're playing in Chris's Call of Cthulhu game, Cthulhu West. I made this. I can never remember the name of the movie. Jeremiah. Do you remember the Western? I made a big mountain man. Yep. Like that's
Jeremiah Johnson.
Thank you, Jeremiah Johnson. Right, brutal movie.
Otter Bob.
Yeah, but yeah, I made this big mountain man, like big hulking mountain man. Few words, good with the rifle. Got a few other skills, kind of things. So that'll be interesting to play through. I think a few more people are joining that game. It was Jerry, Sean, and I were making characters last week, so we'll be playing it on the off weeks. I'm not playing DCC. That'll be fun, and then we're playing more DCC. That's just trucking along, and I'm not overly using Roll20 for it, but enough like the Fog of War thing, like just so that we can reveal the map and stuff.
Yeah, it reminds me. I need you to teach me a little bit about how to do Fog of War on maps off camera sometime.
I will tell you that you should talk to Glenn. Everything I know about Roll20, Glenn's like, oh, cool, do this, and then I can try to help, but I think you could go to the source. Glenn was really good. You could probably just get him on Zoom or something.
Awesome.
All right, guys, we've actually almost hit the 2-hour mark, and I just realized with the help of the chat room that we haven't hit the after show yet.
No, let's roll. We should
roll out into the after show, and I will start with the Patreon shout-outs with a little help from Phil. So we've got Andrew Demps, Brantley Harris, Brett,
Chris Steele,
Christopher Gray, Chromatic Chameleon, Curtis Y. Takahashi, Danielle Thomas, J. David Chrisman, and JT Evans. So, everybody, thank you so much for listening tonight.
Hey, if you are free on Tuesday evenings, 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. the Queen's time, come join us live on Twitch, where you can chat with the other awesome listeners in the chat room for life and ask us the occasional question.
And if you can't make it to the live show, check out our podcast each week, wherever you get your podcasts. Take a listen to some of the other shows in the Misdirected Mark Network, such as Down with D&D, Bonestone and Obsidian, Pandas Talking Games, the Gnome Cast, John Who Hustle, She's a Super Geek, the FM Gamers, and Bonus Experience. You can and should go and check out our sibling podcasts, Tabletop Bellhop, Knights of the Night, and the always amazing Gaming and BS.
After you have clearly understood what needs to be done, and before you put your master plan into action, leave us some feedback. You can reach us directly via email at mmp@misdirectedmark.com. Check us out on Twitter. The show in the network is at Misdirected Mark. He is Robert M. Everson. That's GM Gerrymander. And I am DNA Phil.
Yeah. And if you like what we do here and on the other shows in the Misdirected Mark Network, you can and should support our Patreon campaigns if you are able. MMP Down with D&D and Pandas Talking Games are at patreon.com/MMP. She's a Super Geek is at patreon.com/SassGeek. Zhang Hu Hustle is at patreon.com/Zhang Hu Hustle. And Bonus Experience is at patreon.com/Bonus Experience. Patrons of MMP Down with D&D and Pandas Talking Games get access to the after show, pre-production show notes, musical parodies, the Pandas Talking Games bonus outtakes, and other special releases.
This has been a Misdirected Mark production, the media arm of Encoded Designs. Mic drop.
We out.